Billy Napier, please add a cornerback in the second transfer portal window for the Florida Gators. I am begging you.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free reviews of the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? You ever wonder what adventure could be right around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. And we're going to spend this whole show talking about where the Florida Gators should or might, even if I don't necessarily think they should, look in the transfer portal. First, corner is the spot where I'm like, yeah, you should be looking in the transfer portal for a cornerback if you're the Florida Gators. Florida was looking at a couple of outside corners in the portal. They did try to get a few of them, didn't land them. And I don't know if you know this. And if you've watched this, or if you've watched the Florida Gators in 2023, then you know cornerback play sucked. It was terrible. It was atrocious cornerback play there. 2024, the main difference is that Jalen Kimber has transferred out of the cornerback room. You added Jameer Grimsley. You added Teddy Foster. You didn't really add someone to the corner room that should be a big-time immediate impact player. And I want to get this out there. I do think that Devin Moore is very good. However, he's never healthy. He's just always some kind of injury, something happens. I'm not comfortable going, oh, this year he'll be healthy. Sure, he wasn't in any year prior, but this year he'll be healthy. That's a risk I simply can't afford to take. Like that's a risk that, especially if I'm someone that is coaching for my job, I can't afford to take that risk. And then who else do you have in the corner room? Jason Marshall Jr. Even if you want to go, oh, new cornerback coach, new secondary coach, wipe the slate clean, fine, go ahead. Go ahead. We could do that. If that'll make you comfortable, we can do that. However, that means that the rest of the cornerback room is all very young, or if they're not young, they're very inexperienced in terms of actual in-game situations. Right? That's not an awesome situation to be in when you're about to play one hell of a schedule. Like, this isn't an easy schedule by any stretch of the word. And for Florida, your corners are, I want to say that cornerback is the last spot on the defense that I look at now and I go, I don't feel comfortable with this. There's some spots where I go, might not work out, might work out. But I'm comfortable with the process going into it. Even edge, where it's just a bunch of young guys that have put out good film to this point, but are unproven as far as long-term playing time. Corner, they were bad last year. And the ones that weren't awful were really young and didn't play that much. Like Jakeem Jackson is someone that I'm pretty confident is going to take the next step. Dijon Johnson, we'll see. Everyone else, we'll see. But like you have Jason Marshall Jr., who again, if you want to say clean slate, let's see it. Sure. Jakeem Jackson, high ceiling. We'll see if he can put it together this year because again, he's still learning the position, so it's probably going to take a little bit. But this should be the year where we see the jump. Devin Moore, good, injury prone at this point, or to this point in his career, he's been injury prone. We've been told this whole time, like, hey, this portal class, like this portal cycle is going to be nutso. Probably going to have some decent cornerback talent out there. the Florida Gators play a very modern defense where all those guys would really have to do is pick up the terminology and a couple different landmarks. Like, maybe we want you to sag off 17 yards instead of 15 or whatever it may be. Things like that you can coach quickly. Like if you can bring in someone that comes from a similar system, an Oregon, an Auburn, a Georgia, like one, obviously, yeah, the not ideal school, the last one that I named. But if you can bring someone in that plays a similar defensive system, you can bring someone in that can pick it up right away and contribute to you early on. We do have to talk about the offense as well, but first, a quick word from a couple sponsors. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it farther than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys are able to take it to the next level. The North Carolina Tar Heels, you are our Armada this week. The one seed is as hardcore as it gets. No wonder they were able to secure a Sweet 16 spot. And they're first off, they're playing Alabama, so easy dub there, North Carolina. But also, the way that the game against Michigan State started, I was like, oh, North Carolina is about to fold. And then they didn't. They came back and they won pretty handedly. I feel like it was comfortable watching that, where I was like, all right, yeah, North Carolina's got this. They're a favorite picked by many to make a run for the championship. If they were to lose, that would knock out 3 of the people in my group for the bracket. So I'm just saying, I wouldn't hate it. Just saying, take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure at shopnissanusa.com. If your bracket's already busted, if you're tired of that same daily fantasy grind where you make a roster, cross your fingers and hope for the best, or if you're like me and you are sick and tired of losing on the last leg of your pick'em entry, we got a solution for you. It's Better Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent. Like one of those things where you go, oh, like, yeah, like they have more talent, but we're the better team. Similar to when we were talking about who Florida's going to play in the first round of Colorado or Boise State. Like Colorado's got more talent. Boise State's a better team. Like that. Teamwork triumphs talent here. So they actually win this time. And you can play with your friends, not against them. So you can pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner to boost your odds even further, and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend, join the social daily fantasy movement. And if you download Better Together now from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball tournament. Any. Just saying. Any. Remember to use the code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKEDON, because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And man, allergies are whooping me. I just want to throw that out there. They have been putting me in hell this week. But I do think that the Florida Gators will look at offense in the transfer portal for this second window, assuming spots open up. That brings me to tight end. Hayden Hansen, Arlis Boardingham, Tony Livingston, fully expect all 3 of them back. We'll get to the rest in a minute. The biggest reason that I included tight end on this list is because during the first portal window, the Florida Gators were kind of active in looking at tight ends to bring in. They had tight ends from 4 schools that they either offered or brought in for a visit. Like, I feel like you're not doing that in that first portal window if you feel totally comfortable with everything about your tight end room. And I do believe that they're looking for depth. I think that's one of the reasons that they didn't get the tight end commits that they were talking to or offering, is that a lot of those guys were going in to be starters. And I think that Florida does feel pretty comfortable with Arlis and Hayden Hansen. And so I think they were looking for depth. And a lot of those guys were like, I'm not transferring from starter to be a depth player. But also nothing's really changed since then. You added Amir Jackson, but even when you were going through that portal window, you knew you were adding Amir Jackson. You moved Gavin Hill from defensive line to tight end, but that shouldn't change your plans if you're looking for an experienced option at tight end, right? And I will say this, pure speculation. Keon Zipper tweeted something the other day along the lines of like he makes no mistakes, be patient, like something along the lines of that. And I feel like every time I see those tweets, I go, "Oh, so he's leaving." And like I know a lot of Florida Twitter does that. A lot of Florida Gators fans do that. But I feel like for a guy who's as veteran as Keon Zipperer is, he's at a spot where, sure, two tight ends play a lot. He plays a very specific tight end spot. And that one you have Arliss Boardingham going into year 2 as a starter, year 3 total. I don't know. I just feel like that's not something that you really tweet if you feel pretty confident that you're going to get playing time this year. Just want to throw that one out there. Like again, I'm not saying he's going. I'm not saying that I was told that at all. It's just like a tweet like that just kind of makes me wonder about it when we're a few weeks through spring ball, a couple weeks away from the spring game, second portal window opening. Like it's just the timing and the phrasing just seems a bit peculiar, I guess, to me. And again, he plays a very specific role in that tight end room. And that's not the role that I think Florida's looking for portal ads in. I think if you look at who they were bringing in last year, like guys that could be decent receivers or could be even good receivers, but could play in line more. And I think that's what they're still going to be looking for. Like Tony Livingston, I think is someone that can play both tight end spots. So I think if you kind of stick him at the pass catching tight end spot, then that means that you're going to have a better blocker at that spot. Because again, he's capable of playing both spots. Not at as high a level as Hayden as an inline blocker, not as high level as a pass catcher as Arliss Boardingham, but he can kind of be the happy medium. So if you can have him as that pass catching spot, that means that your pass catching tight end is still a pretty decent blocker. So I think that that's one of the approaches, because I don't think that 12 personnel is going anywhere anytime soon. Frankly, because Florida's offense last year was better out of 12 personnel on like a per play basis. Florida's offense was better in 12 personnel. Graham Mertz was great in 12 personnel. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like there's plenty of issues. Sure, absolutely, plenty of issues. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I do think that Florida will look at tight end. I don't think they have to. I think that if you go with Tony at the blocking and Keon Zipper at the more receiving spot with Hayden and Arliss starting, I think that's a fine 4-man tight end rotation. My concern is like long term, you don't have tight end depth right now. But I think that Florida's going to look at tight end. And again, I'm not saying that they should or have to, but if it's something that they need, because again, if Hayden Hansen goes down, like God forbid, knock on wood, if Hayden Hansen goes down, you don't have an inline blocker. You just don't, like a good one at that. You have Tony Livingston who can do that. Full-time starter quality? I don't think so. So I do think that Florida will look at tight end in this second portal window, and that they'll try to just fill in the blanks depth-wise. Like there's only so much you can do with adding a guy and getting him up to speed to play for you on August 31st now. But I think tight end's one of those spots where if you go mostly an inline guy or even a pass catching guy, pick up the playbook with experience, and if they come from a somewhat similar offense, which is relatively common nowadays, I think that you can find that improvement in your team. And I think that's what Florida's going to look for. Again, whether or not you think they need it, I think it's something that they think they need. We're sticking on offense because we are going to talk about wide receiver, which might piss some people off. But first, a quick word from Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV, just like the one that I have plugged into the back of my living room TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, which, hello, today is opening day. Just want to throw that one out there. Not for my Mets, because that game got postponed yesterday. They announced that they were like, nope, sorry, can't do it. So that sucks. But also, March Madness returns tonight. It's an awesome time to be a sports fan. You're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, the NBA, the MLB starting up. Same. Great time. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. I do not lie. Just saying, except for when we talk about the Florida Gators season upcoming. Just saying. Visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, if I can make it through, my nose is so red. I look like I'm in those old like Puffs commercials, like Christmas with the elf. We're talking about the wide receiver room for the Florida Gators. And again, I just want to say this isn't something where I'm sitting here and I'm going, the Florida Gators need to add a wide receiver. No. I'm just saying that if you can get, again, a depth guy or a rotational player that has some size, we can be having a conversation here. You have a ton of youth in that room, right? Like you look at the recent recruiting classes. I mean, 2023, you had Trey Wilson, Aiden Mizell, Andy Jean all come in. Andy Jean and Aiden Mizell redshirted. Andy Jean played a little bit. Aiden Mizell barely played. I think it was mostly like McNeese that he played against. And of course, Eugene Wilson III was a freshman All-American. The 2022 class, you brought in Caleb Douglas, who's no longer there. You brought in Ty Bowman, who's no longer there. That was all you had there. And then in 2024, this most recent year, you brought in Jeray Tank Hawkins. You brought in Tawaski Abrams. That is it. You had Isaiah Williams. He flipped on signing day to Texas A&M. But you look at that receiving room, and there's still a lot of youth in there. Like it's still a lot of young guys where Khalil Jackson is your veteran who's going in his fifth year, final year. Chimere Dike is coming over from Wisconsin for his final year. And when you look at the rotation of who's going to play, it's kind of it, right? Like you have Marcus Burke, who we're still waiting for that breakout that we talk about every single year. And myself, as someone who's a openly big Marcus Burke fan, I still really like his game. I accept he's probably not going to be a big time contributor for a Billy Napier offense. I don't think he's a Billy Napier type of receiver. So I think it's really hard for me to go, oh, this is when he turns it around. Like, this is when he breaks out. Year 3 of Billy Napier, year 4 total is when he breaks out. It's hard for me to sell that, man, right? Jaquavian Frazier, you've yet to break out. And I like Jaquavian. He seems like a very nice person. I think that he can provide special teams value. But as far as playing receiver, it's just not working out like with this offense. He's another one where he's not the kind of Billy Napier receiver. He's just not. Like Khalil Jackson is not a like a giant dude at all. Marcus Burke, Jaquavian Frazier are each like 6'3", 6'4". Khalil Jackson is listed as 6'3". I'd buy like 6'2" and a quarter. I'll give you that. Plays above the rim though, but like 6'2" and a quarter is what I'd buy, and that's considered the big receiver for Florida. Like that's the X. That's the big guy here. So I think that if you can find someone who can make plays with ball in their hands or consistently win jump balls, which you just had in Caleb Douglas, and he left, which sucked. But if you could find someone that can consistently make those plays, then you add to your receiver room a little bit of in terms of who's ready to play now. Because right now, if Khalil Jackson gets banged up, you're going to have to go to Marcus Burke or Jaquavian Frazier, who are two guys that like ideally, if you're Florida, you don't want to play right now. Again, I'd play Marcus Burke easily. I would have no problem with that. But Florida doesn't want to play him, right? And so if Khalil Jackson gets hurt, you're going to be in a spot where you have to play him. You never want to be in a spot where you're playing guys that you have to play. Right? You want to be in a spot where you're playing guys you want to play. So to add a guy there, Chimere Dike, we'll see what he's going to be at the SEC level. We'll see what he's going to be in this offensive system, how he's going to work out there. But for Florida, like, you've got a ton of youth, not too much experience that's ready to play and that you want to play right now. I can see Florida going there. I can see Florida going, all right, who's a 6'2", 6'3" guy that's got decent enough speed, can either win jump balls or create separation consistently and create yards after the catch. Because again, for Florida, like, you got a ton of experience. I mean, you got a ton of youth. You don't have a ton of experience, and you don't have a ton of size. Very small receiver room for Florida, where again, you're one injury away from being in a really rough spot if you're the Gators. And I don't think that any of us want that. And we can say, oh, Andy Jean taking the next step, Eugene Wilson going to play more receiver, Aiden Mizell taking the next step, Tank Hawkins can contribute, TJ Abrams can contribute, or TJ Abrams can contribute. We don't know any of those guys are for sure taking that next step. So for me, if you could add a guy that you feel is relatively proven at receiver, you do it. Especially when, again, we're talking about all these spots, like portal's supposed to be crazy in the second window. Who's to say Florida doesn't lose a Marcus Burke or Jaquavian Frazier? And then you're right back at the spot where you're like, all right, well, we were probably going to look for someone anyway. So maybe we just put a little more added emphasis on doing that in this window here, because we need to have a decent passing attack this year. Because, I mean, it's year 2 under Graham Mertz. Like, this is what we're talking about. This is what we need to see here. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back maybe later today. We might do a bonus show later today. Just see how we're feeling. We might talk basketball, transfer portal. Go with that one. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33. And as always, I'll see you all next time.